everybody, this is Don from Wizard Tower Games. Apologize about my dark room here, but just been doing some quiet work, and I want to talk a little bit about something that has been on the forefront of a lot of people's discussion in the gaming industry, also among us game producers and publishers. It's been heavy on the table, and that is AI art. And I'm going to kind of throw out my kind of thought behind AI art. I'm going to talk a little bit about what Wizard Tower Games' stance on AI art is going to end up being. So let's just go ahead and get right onto it, okay? Now, AI art basically is machine-generated art. It started really becoming something about 6 months ago. I started noticing it more and more. But there's something really key here that I've noticed about AI art, and that is, in the last 6 months, it's gotten so much better. I have actually went into one of the Midjourneys Discord, and I started playing around with it. It is getting to the point where it is going to get hard to tell what AI art is and what AI art is not. And that's going to be the impetus of the whole problem. Now, I know there was a couple of game companies that came out and made statements to the negative about it and said we will never use it, et cetera, et cetera. The problem is going to be is AI art is getting so good, you're not going to know if it's AI generated or not. Now, there is a lot of AI art out there. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull up a piece of AI art that I seen. And I want to show this to you. Now this is AI art, and this actually is just really amazing to me. That almost looks photoshopped. And with Photoshop, you could take that piece of AI art and you could really clean it up. Certain tells with AI, the incomplete pieces and parts, the little floating pieces, that type of stuff, this kind of stuff. It tends to be in AI art a lot. But other than that, this is really good. And again, the problem's going to be is as AI art becomes even better. I mean, I can you imagine what's going to be like 6 months from now? What's going to happen to game companies? Because the problem's going to be is this, is some artist comes to you and they present, like happens to us all the time. We get emails all the time with, hi, I'm an artist from Brazil, from Thailand, from California, Georgia. Here's a link to my portfolio. I like to do artwork for you. And you go to it, and it's really beautiful artwork. Now, I know about Photoshop filters, and I know that there's filters out there that you can take somebody, like I can take a picture of myself and turn it into a comic book character with the flip of a switch. But the problem is with AI art is going to end up being differentiating between what is real, what is Photoshop, what is a Photoshop filter, what is a Photoshop smart object versus what AI is. And that's going to be the biggest problem here, I think, is going to be basically separating it in a line saying that this is AI versus this is not AI. So these game companies that are coming out and saying we will never support AI art, I think what's going to end up happening, and if they're not already doing it, they're going to be doing it relatively quickly, is they're going to be using AI art whether they know it's AI or not, because that's how good it's getting. And that's the problem here with it. So I think instead what needs to happen here is this, is I think as a game publisher, what we need to do is we need to, for lack of a better word, police our own industry. So as an example, if I tell somebody and I hire somebody to make artwork for a new game manual or for a board game we're doing, and I don't want AI art used, which I prefer it not to be used, then the artist is going to have to sign a certification saying, or a statement saying that they are certifying that this is not AI generated. And then there has to be in that agreement repercussions if you find out they lied and it is AI generated. And we are actually working with an attorney to draft up said paperwork. Because you're going to be, it's getting better, people, and it's getting better and better. And there's just, and it's going to get to the point where you're not going to be able to tell. Now, I am not a fan of AI art. I'm going to tell you the reason why. I'm not a fan of it because when, what you have to understand is when you say goblin, you type in like Midjourney, goblin standing in a dark dungeon with torches on the wall. What AI does is AI just doesn't say, okay, we're going to draw it. What AI does is it goes out and it sends out millions of spiders, like Google does. And it starts grabbing random artwork, and it starts taking all of it and cobbling it together. So you have legitimately hardworking artists who are going to see sections or portions of their work being used in AI by artists who then are going to sell their work to companies like me. So like I give you an example, Dean Spencer. If you don't know who Dean Spencer is a hell of an artist. I mean, he is a hell of an artist, and by the way, a martial artist also. He is in the UK, and if you just type in Dean Spencer art on DriveThruRPG, he has some of the best fantasy art, and he makes it inexpensive for publishers to use. And I've already seen influences his work in AI-generated art. And Dean doesn't deserve that because people like Dean, in fact, all artists, I'm a pencil artist. And, I do pencil work. And I think I'm a fairly adept artist. And I would frankly be freaking pissed off if I saw AI art, based on my art out there. Because what am I going to get out of it? It's the same thing if I went ahead and I went into some other pub or some other game company's artwork. I'll pick on Jim Wampler. Pick on you, Jim. That'd be the same as, let's say, I create a game and I just go into one of Jim Wampler's games that he has worked hard on. And I just take one of the races verbatim and use it. Why not? How about I create it? How about instead of calling it AI art, I call it AI writing instead. And I type in the computer and I say, I want to talk about frogs. And it goes out and it pulls all kinds of stuff about frogs and some of Jim Wampler's hard work. Is that fair to Jim Wampler that Wizard Tower Games publishes that game and says we wrote it? Because I was so lazy that all I did is type in, under an RPG AI generator. Because that's coming too. Where's the line going to be drawn? I think what needs to happen now is we need to draw that line very early on. Do it now. I'm not saying don't use AI art. I'm saying that if you're going to use AI art, make sure that you notify your customers that you're going to use AI art. Thus, another reason why I am making this video is I am working with a group of individuals, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be pushing an initiative. And what it's going to do is it's going to involve certification of games, RPGs, board games, etc., and basically certifying them whether or not they have used AI art or not based upon input that they have given. Also, along with that, also doing age-appropriate designations for games. No, we're not going to have some silly bar graph. What we're going to do is we're going to work very closely, and we have been. We've actually been working with several large game companies. Earlier this week, me and my attorney actually had a meeting. I'm not going to say the game company yet, but it's one of the biggest. They've been in the news a lot lately about signing on with us and this idea that we have that not an ESRB, but basically something similar. But also, I sent the email out earlier today about proposing about the use of AI art or not on it. So, again, I think the key here is to very early on. Now, let's tackle this now as publishers. And I'm really hoping and encouraging my fellow publishers out there and artists and game designers, out there to jump on this and say, listen, it's a technology we're not going to stop. See, that's the thing. We're not going to stop AI art. For all these game companies out there that are drawing a line in the sand that says, we will not use any art that's AI art, I'm going to tell you again, I'll reiterate what I said earlier. It is going to be very hard, very, very hard, nigh impossible, as a matter of fact, to differentiate AI art versus regular art within the next 6 months. It has gotten so good in the last 6 months. And, you know, I'm trying to find it. I have my screen open on my other side because I was going to show you another piece of AI art that I did on Midjourney that is scary because, and I needed to pull it up, but I'll put it in this video. In fact, tell you what I'm going to do since I'm editing this video. This is the artwork I'm talking about right here. That's the artwork. And I just think that what we as a group of publishers, game makers, writers, and you don't have to be a game publisher. I'm talking about even if you write games, even if you are an artist, people like Dean Spencer, people like Ravlik and other people that we've used in our games. Yes, I've paid their fees. We believe that you need to pay the artist for their work. I don't care if they charge $10 or $1,000. If they set a price for their artwork and they say, hey, they put it out there online, they say, hey, this is my piece of art. You can use it commercially for $14.50. I'm using Dean as an example because his art is excellent and it's very economical. Does Dean deserve to have his artwork then hijacked by a computer and to have other artwork randomly pulled off of that? Where's the fairness to the artists? And this is where the self-policing needs to come into play. We need to go ahead now, step up as publishers, designers, writers, editors. I'm talking about everybody involved in the industry. People like Thomas Veralt at Tabletop Taproom, people like Eric Tenkar from Tenkar's Tavern, people like Cinder Shadow from his YouTube channel, Dave Simpson from Gamers on Games. Everybody needs to come together, I believe, and say, hey, we need to act responsibly. We need to go ahead and realize it's going to be used. So what is the middle ground that we can go ahead and we can pull out of this? What is the middle ground, or what are some basic laws that we can put into place to protect those people who produce AI-generated art? But also, more importantly, to protect those individuals out there that AI art goes out like Google does. When you type in Wizard Tower Games in Google sends out millions of spiders. They're called spiders. And they go out and they start pecking all over for it. And that's what AI art does. And I've seen the argument from people going, well, it takes my creativity because I have to do the keywords. I'm not disagreeing with you, because I've played it on Midjourney. I've done things like Goblin and Dungeon, and the results from Goblin and Dungeon are far less nice and are far less quality if I type in Goblin holding long sword in dark dungeon hallway with torches flaring on the wall with an evil grimace on his face. Yes, keywords are important. Yes, it takes, I'm going to use the word talent, and I know a lot of people are going to throw a rock at me over that, but I'm trying to be nice here. But that's exactly what's happening here is, we have to be able to understand and accept it's being used, it's going to be used, it's getting better, it's going to get to the point where it's going to be almost impossible, if not impossible, to tell the difference. And so, like I said, I'm working with another organization out there, and we have already been in touch with several game companies. We've actually had a conference with another large game company who is very, very much in favor of jumping on board with us on this, about making an age-appropriate system that also, though, involves AI art, pirated art, that type of thing. That way, when your customer, and if you're a game company or whatnot, when your customer goes ahead and looks to buy your product, they can understand that what they're buying is what they want. Just like if you're going to have a game and you're going to have sexual content in that game, you need to let people know that the age appropriateness of that content, because you don't want some mom or dad buying it for their 10-year-old to play because it looks like it's appropriate, but it has adult themes. We need to be proactive here, and that's what I'm advocating for. So at Wizard Tower Games, we are actually going to be proactive. We actually are going to move forward, and we're going to have more information probably right after the first of the year, if not before. So this is Don from Wizard Tower Games. That is my little bit of a blurb tonight about AI art and more. Hope everyone's having a good week. Everybody, stay safe, stay warm, have a very Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate. Have a good night, guys.